When managing a project, it is essential to understand how to insert fixed costs and variable costs into the planning. To do this, we use a structure based on activities or tasks, where each cost is directly associated with a specific task. In our spreadsheet, column B references the activities and allows us to structure the costs as follows: fixed costs, variable costs, and the total cost sum. Before considering risks, we can perform a deterministic analysis in the cost sheet. Here, we observe that the sum of the fixed costs is $12,000. The sum of the variable costs is $11,000, and the total project costs amount to $23,000. If we take a specific task as an example, such as task 13, development, we must assign it a probable fixed cost variable in the corresponding column. The fixed cost is assigned regardless of the number of activity days. In the case of task 13, a most likely fixed cost of $2,000 has been defined. Additionally, just as we assign levels of uncertainty, low, medium, or high, to tasks' durations, we apply the same principle to fixed and variable costs. In column C, we can add variability to the fixed cost. For example, if the uncertainty is low, the fixed cost of $2,000 could fluctuate between $1,900, minimum with a minus 5% variation, and $2,200, a maximum with a plus 10% variation. If the uncertainty is medium, the range expands from $1,700 to $2,500. And if it is high, it extends from $1,400 to $3,000. Now, the variable costs are calculated per activity day. In column H, we can assign different levels of uncertainty and define a minimum value, a most likely or most probable value, and a maximum value. Since variable cost is charged per day, we must consider the number of days for each activity. In column M, we find the number of days assigned to each task. Total variable cost of an activity is calculated using the following formula. Total variable cost is variable cost per day times the number of days. Total fixed cost is added in order to account for the total cost of the activity. This calculation varies depending on the chosen level of uncertainty. Now, when we change the parameters in B7 from deterministic to probabilistic, the values change dynamically. Pressing F9, recalculation button, updates the fixed cost on column G, the variable cost per day on column L, and the number of activity days on column M. This process allows us to see how activity duration influences variable costs, reflected in column N, the total variable cost. Finally, on column O, we obtain the total project costs, integrating both fixed and variable costs. Therefore, project cost calculation depends on a proper association between activities, fixed costs, and variable costs. Integrating uncertainty into these values allows for more realistic and flexible project management projections.